Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Kaplan, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the one available home being made available at Village Gate at Manomet Bluffs in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So the purpose of this info session is to give a little bit of background information on the home, the application and eligibility process, and how the lottery will be run, and also what to expect after the lottery. So if you have any questions during the session, there's a chat box that is to the right of where you see me. And I'm going to type something in there now so you're able to see it. You can also join us by conference call. And if you prefer to do that, I'm going to leave the number and code here for you. So feel free to type any questions in there and I will stop and answer them. This will be a live session, so it is going to be saved to YouTube after it is all finished. So if you need to watch this after the fact, or if you need to come back to it, you can do that. It'll be waiting there for you. After the information session, if you need to get in touch with SEB for any reason, email is the quickest way to get in touch with us, but if you prefer calling, you can do that as well. So I'm going to put the info@sebhousing.com email address in the chat, and that is our main info email inbox. And then if you would like to call after the fact, that is our number as well, 617-782-6900. So just a quick background on SEB Housing. So we are a off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we're hired by the developer to market this affordable home, conduct the information session, and the lottery itself. We're going to be collecting information from applicants for this housing opportunity and determining an applicant's eligibility to eventually run the lottery. So we are not an on-site property management company or anything like that. We haven't seen the home. And so in the initial phases, we will be your main contact rather than the developer themselves. But later on in this process, you'll have a lot more communication with the developer and the owner directly. So there's two broad steps in this process. The first being applying for the actual affordable housing program. And that's done with SEB Housing. So we're here during that process to answer any questions you might have. The contact information that I just gave is your best way of doing that. We're going to do a preliminary review of your application and determine if you're eligible to be entered into the lottery for this home. We'll give you a position on that waiting list after the lottery is held. The second step involves more of the actual reserving and buying of the home. So you'd be talking a lot more to the owner and a lender and everything at that point. And so your opportunity to actually go ahead and purchase this home will be dependent on your waitlist placement after the lottery. Like I said, there's only one home available. So if there's multiple eligible applicants, then only the first person in that lottery to be eligible will be able to own the home. So we'll be talking a lot about the information packet during this session, and page 11 of that information packet has the approximate timeline for each of these processes as well. So if you haven't done so already, please go to our website to see the all of the available information for this housing lottery. And how you would do that is you would go to the website that I just put up there for you, so sebhousing.com. You would click on the Affordable Housing Opportunities page and select I want to buy. Then select Village Gate at Manomet Bluffs and you'll be taken to the page specifically for this property that's going to have a downloadable version of the application, the deed rider, and the information packet, which is what I'll be going through mostly this evening. We're not going to have time to cover everything in the information packet, but I am going to try to get through the main points tonight. So it's recommended that you take a look at that even if you watch this information session, because there is a lot of information in there that will be helpful for you in going through this process. So if you choose to apply for this affordable home at Village Gate in Manomet, you'll need to complete the unit application that is available on that site, and you can then submit it to us in one of several ways. The first being by email. You can send it as an attachment to us, scan it to us. You can fax it to us. The fax number is on the first page of the application. You can send it by regular mail, or you can drop it off at our Dropbox, which is in our office in Needham. So it's a 24-hour Dropbox. It's on the left side of the building when you come down the driveway. And the address is 257 Hillside Ave in Needham. So any of those ways, whatever is most convenient for you, is perfectly fine. We do encourage you to get your application in early. It's fairly brief. It really should only take you about 10 minutes to complete. You don't need supporting documentation at this point to verify your income or anything like that, but you do want to get that application in. And although we don't need supporting income documentation, we do need a mortgage pre-approval to be sent in with your application, since this is a home ownership opportunity. We're going to cover more about what the process is for you maybe getting a mortgage pre-approval and all of that during this presentation. But keep in mind that applications for this home are due on January 11th. So that's about 3 weeks away. And so applications have to be delivered or postmarked by that date in order for us to consider them. You don't need to be a Plymouth resident to buy this home. So this lottery is open to anyone. So a little bit more information on the property or this affordable home itself. It's a 2-bedroom home located at 786 State Road in the Manomet neighborhood of Plymouth. And the home is part of a 6-home development located near the Manomet beaches, restaurants, shops, and the home is 1,700 square feet. It has 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, as well as an unfinished basement. There's hardwood, oak flooring throughout the kitchen, dining room, and living room, with carpeting upstairs and in the bedrooms. The bathrooms have tile flooring, and the appliances in the kitchen are stainless steel, and there is central air conditioning. There's a 1-car attached garage and 2 additional parking spaces, and the condo fees are $200 per month and include the cost of master insurance, snow removal, septic system cleaning, and reserve funds. The price of the home is $281,000, so it's priced significantly below what market rent, not market rent, but market priced homes are selling for in the area, in Plymouth, or really in the Boston area in general. And since the home is going to be sold at an affordable price, it's only going to be made available to households whose total income is at or below 80% of the area median income for Boston. Plymouth, although it's a little bit outside of Boston, is still within the Boston area. And the area median income is something that is set by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, so HUD, each year. So they change in the spring every year. Right now, we're going to go through what those area median incomes are later. But there is also what's called a deed rider that is going to be attached to this affordable home and the deed that is filed for the home. So at the time of purchase, this deed rider is going to ensure that the home remains affordable even in the future. So if you were to buy this home and you were to sell it down the line, this deed rider is going to put some stipulations in place that you'd have to keep in mind. So We're going to go over a few of those. The full deed rider has a lot more information, but the main points of it here, we just want to make sure that you're aware of that, so you can think about whether or not this opportunity is for you. So the deed rider is going to limit the amount for which you're eventually able to resell the property. So if you're looking to, buy a home, flip it, or rent it out, or something like that, this isn't the opportunity for you. It doesn't mean you won't be able to sell the property for more than what you pay for it if you were to buy it this year, but it must be resold to another affordable buyer down the line. So you might have some return on your investment, but you wouldn't be expecting the same appreciation of a market rate home can sometimes see, since the market fluctuates so much. And there's a formula for resale of affordable properties, and there's an example of that formula on the last page of the info packet if you'd like to take a look at it. The formula is based off of area median income. So again, the HUD amounts that are released each year comes into play as well. For the deed rider, it also states that the unit must be your primary residence. So like I said, you wouldn't be able to rent out the home as a Airbnb or something like that. This needs to be your primary residence where you are living all year. If you'd like to refinance or make capital improvements, like a new roof or something like that down the line, you would need to approach Department of Housing and Community Development to get their approval. That is something else that is listed in the deed rider. This is a brand new home, so there shouldn't really be any major improvements or construction projects or things that need to happen, but you just want to keep in mind as you go down the line that would be something that would need approval because this is an affordable unit with a deed rider. And so I mentioned that the mortgage pre-approval is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. And we suggest that after you review the information packet, you basically just take a look at page 10, which is listing some of the mortgage pre-approval information that your lender will need. You could just take a copy of that and bring it to your lender and show it to them. You want to make sure that they understand what kind of a mortgage product that you're looking for, so there's no surprises sort of during this process for them. The deed rider as well, you may want to take to the bank or your lender of choosing with you, because there's information in there that could potentially be problematic for some banks and lenders. Sort of, some of the things we already talked about. So the fact that the property, needs to be sold to an affordable rent, an affordable amount going forward. And the loan also needs to have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. And it cannot be a FHA or VA loan, because those types of loans don't accept the deed restrictions that need to come with this affordable property. So you can select any lender or bank that you choose, but we strongly recommend that you choose someone who has experience with affordable housing programs. There's a link in the information packet on page 10 that will direct you to the Mass Housing Partnership website, which is a great resource for you to find lenders who are familiar with affordable housing. I should also mention too that the mortgage pre-approval standards on page 10 there state that you must, the buyer must put down 3% of the purchase price. So you can finance 97% of the loan, or of the purchase price, I should say, and half of that 3%, so 1.5% of the purchase price, would need to come out of your own funds. So if you have someone that maybe is helping you with a down payment, you still would need to put down 1.5% of your own funds to be eligible for this housing opportunity. So some eligibility requirements and criteria I just want to go through next. There's 4 main eligibility requirements listed on page 4 of the application, of the information packet. And The first is that everyone in the household, in order to qualify to buy this property, needs to be considered a first-time home buyer. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in just a few minutes, but there are exceptions to this as well. But even if you qualify for one of those exceptions, you would need to sell your home, if you do currently own one, before closing on a property at the property at Village Gate. The second eligibility requirement is the household's income and assets must be below the maximum allowable income and asset limits. We'll talk more about that. Households must be pre-approved for a mortgage. And the fourth criteria is the households cannot have financial interest in the development or be a related party. So the home is being offered by the developer by the name of Agostino Diodato Jr. So if you know him or if you work for Diodato Construction Company, you might not be eligible for this lottery opportunity. So to circle back to the first eligibility criteria to explain more, everyone in the household must be a first-time homebuyer. What does that mean? So household members are considered first-time homebuyers if they have not, within the last 3 years, owned a home. And this includes joint ownership. So if you were on a deed along with your partner sometime over the last 3 years, you would not be considered a first-time home buyer. But if you were on a deed years ago, you may be considered a first-time home buyer. There's 5 exceptions to the first-time home buyer rule. This is all listed in the information packet, like I said. But there's 3 exceptions that come up most often, so I'm going to go through those. The first is someone that's referred to as a displaced homemaker. That's someone who hasn't worked outside the home for many years. They have owned a home with their partner or spouse within the last 3 years, but they no longer own that home due to maybe a recent divorce or separation. So they're no longer on the home's deed. That's someone who has owned a home recently, but could still be eligible for an exception. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, or the person is pregnant and is now being displaced and is looking for a place to live, or a place to buy, I should say. The third exception is an age-qualified household. So this would apply to households with a member that's 55 and older that is selling or has sold a home recently in order to purchase an affordable property. So if you qualify for these exceptions, like I said, you do still need to sell your home and be completely off of the deed for your previous home before buying the home at Village Gate. This might mean that you need to finalize your divorce or just make sure that your name is completely off of that deed before you're able to buy this property. So the second eligibility criteria that we're going to talk a little bit more about are the income limits. So this is an affordable home, and it's being made available to families with lower income who may not be able to buy a market rate home. So like I said, it's being made available to households below 80% of the area median income. And these maximum income limits are set by household size. So everybody in the household would need to be counted when you're looking at, when you're thinking about what your household size might be when you're looking at these. So these are in the info packet. No need to write these down or anything like that, but if you are a 1-person household, the maximum income limit for this opportunity is $70,750. If you're a 2-person household, the maximum is $80,850. If you're a 3-person household, the maximum is $90,950. And if you're a 4-person household, the maximum income limit is $101,050. So like we said before, you're not required to submit verification of your income when you submit your unit application and the mortgage pre-approval. This is still early in the process, right? But applicants at the time of being found preliminarily eligible for the lottery will be provided with a documentation requirements guide. And that document is going to be really helpful to you because it is going to explain exactly what in detail, exactly what we're going to need when the time comes if you are selected or invited to move forward in this process. So it's going to detail, we're going to need your most recent pay stubs, benefit statements, if applicable, tax returns, copies of actually your federal tax returns for the last 3 years. So you might need to kind of dig around for some of these things. Bank statements, that sort of thing. So it might take you a little bit of time to get that information up and ready and get the whole package ready to be sent to SEB Housing. So that's why we're kind of giving you a heads up. Even though you haven't been invited to move forward yet, we want to make sure that you're able to get all of that information within a relatively short period of time for us. And so although we're not going to need verification right away when you apply for this opportunity, I do want to give a basic overview of how your income will be calculated when the time comes. So income for this program is counted as a projection of your total income for the next 12 months for all household members. And it's really all income for the most part that is counted, which includes bonuses, overtime that you might be making, so not just your base salary if you're working. The only exceptions to this are minors who are working. So if you have anyone in your household under the age of 18 who is working, we're not going to count their wages towards your income at all. The second exception, the only other exception, is full-time students who are working. We're only going to count the first $480 of their wages when determining eligibility. We must count gross income. So that means we're not counting your net income after taxes. This is all before taxes. So we recognize, you don't take home that amount, but it is what we must count for this program. So how we calculate income is really not one size fits all. Everyone's income circumstances are unique. And so while some applicants have a weekly salary that is consistent throughout the year, others are self-employed, they may work seasonally. In those types of circumstances, we might need to look further back in the past in order to project anticipated income for the next 12 months. And so specifically for applicants who are self-employed, you would need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation to take your business expenses into account. And so for households who are not self-employed, it's always the gross income that we count. We wouldn't be counting any of your expenses if you just, you have an employer and you're not self-employed. So in general, any income you've been making in the past, we're going to assume that you're going to continue making it in the future. Unless we have definitive documentation from you stating that you're not going to be earning that income source going forward. And that might be a written letter from your employer confirming that there will be no overtime available this year, no bonuses, whatever it might be. But short of that, we're not permitted to accept statements from applicants stating, for example, I made $80,000 last year, but I plan to work far less hours this coming year, and my income is only going to be $55,000. We would still need to count the $80,000 that we have verification of in the last year, unless there's a written statement from your employer or something else to prove otherwise. So the types of income that you might think of, wages come to mind, but you would need to list all sources of income coming into your household. So there is a table on the application that you will see, and you just want to make sure you don't miss any of those, so make sure to look that over. Some examples of income that you want to remember: wages, either from self-employment or an employer, Social Security benefit statements, child support, alimony, retirement distributions, unemployment, workman's compensation, even periodic payments that maybe are given to you as gifts from family members. For example, how would we verify that? It might be a statement from the family member who's contributing to your family, and they would just be listing the amount and frequency of those payments. Any income that's generated from your assets would also be considered income. So just make sure that you're including everything, that any type of income coming into your household on your application to avoid any delays in us processing it down the line. So to apply for the lottery for this affordable home, there is no minimum income, but you do want to keep in mind that in order to qualify for a mortgage, the lender is probably going to have some requirements in terms of income. Your assets. Households may not have a total of more than $75,000 in assets at the time of application to be eligible for this opportunity. This includes really all assets, with the exception of personal assets such as jewelry, cars, if you have a collection of some sort. But it is going to include cash and savings, checking accounts, CDs, net value of stocks, or retirement accounts. You might think it's a little bit strange that we will count retirement funds because you really have those assets tied up right now, potentially not thinking of retiring for 20 or 30 years. And the program just requires us to do so. So we will need to take the post-penalty amount or the net cash value of any retirement accounts. So you would be asked to provide a letter from the financial institution confirming what that post-penalty amount is. And the reason for that is really, most people are not going to access those accounts until they retire, but you technically could. So that's, I think the thinking behind that is it is still an asset that you have access to, albeit with a steep penalty sometimes. If you happen to have a family member who is going to be really generous and gift you with part of your down payment for this home, that amount would still be considered an asset. Although you are going to be using it right away, you would need to disclose it on your application. And I mentioned that we do not count personal assets, so jewelry and cars and things like that. Okay, so the lottery eligibility itself. As mentioned earlier, so you want to get your application in as soon as possible. We're going to review your application, and we're going to contact you if there's any missing information on your unit application, or if anything appears incorrect to us, we will reach out to you. And you'd have a chance to resubmit before the January deadline. So if you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number in the form of an email or by regular mail if you don't have an email address. And your lottery eligibility notice is going to have a lottery application number, and the format of that number is going to be A dot and then several numbers. So this is the number that's going to be drawn in the lottery. And it's really just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so we're not calling out your name during the lottery. It's not a ranking of any sort at this time when you receive that lottery eligible notice. It's really just corresponds with the order in which we received your application. So if you're the first person to apply, your lottery application number will be A.001, for example. So on your application, you're also going to have indicated whether you're a household type 1 or 2. And there's more information about this in the information packet as well, but a type 1 household, since this is a 2-bedroom home, a type 1 household can apply for this 2-bedroom home, but all type 2 households are going to have priority. So this means that all Type 2 households will be ahead of any Type 1 households when we establish the waiting list after the lottery. And like I said, there's additional details if you're looking for it in the information packet. The household composition and household types are on page 8. So some of examples of a Type 1 household are a single person household or a couple who shares a bedroom, and an example of a Type 2 household would be 2 parents who share a bedroom and then 1 or more children. The lottery application deadline, like I said, is January 11th. The lottery itself is going to be held virtually, similar to this format, on February 2nd at 6 p.m. And we're going to create the waiting list shortly after the lottery. The top households from that wait list that we establish are going to be invited by SEB Housing to move forward to reserve the unit, and then move on to getting a mortgage and buying the property. So the lottery session, like I said, will be the same sort of format, a virtual lottery. Numbers will be drawn from a box held up to the screen, and we're going to record all of the numbers in their order to be able to establish the wait list. So every lottery number is going to be drawn and picked out in this lottery. I think a lot of times when we hear the word lottery, we think that there's one winner, and if your number is called third, then you're not going to be able to buy the property. That's not the way that this is going to work, though. So, for example, we're going to establish the wait list, but if a Type 1 household, so a single person, is drawn first in the lottery, they're still going to be behind all of the Type 2 households on the wait list. Households who were entered into the lottery that, may not be found eligible or may ultimately decide not to buy the property. So if your number is drawn later in the lottery, maybe there's 10 households, 10 applicants, and you're drawn 9th, that does not necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to move forward to potentially purchase this property. So do not lose hope if you come later on, if your lottery number is drawn later on in the process. So following the lottery, we're going to do our best to send out the waiting list results to you as soon as possible. It'll be sent by email or regular mail if you do not have an email address, no later than usually the next day, the next morning after the lottery. So you don't need to tune into the lottery. If you miss it, you can still find out the results the next day. So when you're reviewing that email that shows you the wait list and you're looking for your lottery application number, you should be able to see where you fall on the wait list, and it will give you a better idea of whether or not you might be invited to move forward in the next step in the process. If you are one of the top households on the wait list, SEB is going to send you an invite to move forward with the process, and that is when you'll be asked to provide all of your tax, income, asset documentation so we can confirm your eligibility for this housing opportunity. So hopefully by this point, you will have begun working to gather all the documentation, because you would have already had access to the documentation requirements guide, because you'll only have about 7 days, so about 1 week to get all that information into us. So that's why we're going to encourage you again to take a look at that guide if you're eligible for this lottery and start gathering your documentation. So we'll review all of your income information, all of your asset and tax information, and we'll respond to you within a few days once we get your information. Most applicants do not submit a 100% complete application on the first try. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first being that because there's a lot of information required from you, and also because sometimes we just have further questions that come up when you start supplying information. So it could be a question on a deposit that is listed in your bank account, but we want to verify what that is, make sure it's not another source of income and things like that. After SEB has determined that you appear to be eligible for the opportunity, our next step is to send your file to the state, so the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, and they will then do a file review and give us the green light, hopefully, to move your application forward. So once DHCD has approved your application, the process really starts to become even more similar to if you were buying or purchasing a home, a market rate home. And so I should mention too, as you go through this home buying process, you might decide to hire an attorney to assist you and just navigate you through the process. We encourage you to do that. It's perfectly acceptable and it's likely the smart thing to do. So, buying a home is a huge decision, and we want to be sure that you understand the process and are well represented. So you can absolutely do that. Once DHCD has approved your application, we are going to put you in touch with the owner at that point to schedule a time to view, obviously tour the property, and schedule a time to complete your reservation agreement as well. So in order to reserve the home, you would need to put down a $500 refundable deposit. That would be required. After reserving the home, you'll have about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale agreement, and then place the required deposit, which is 1.5% of the sales price minus that $500 that you already paid when reserving the unit. And your purchase and sale agreement will list your actual closing date. So your closing date will be the final step in the home buying process, and the finish line will be near at that point. So once the purchase and sale is signed, you'll then need to go back to your bank or lender who gave you the mortgage pre-approval, and you're going to obtain a mortgage commitment at that point. So the pre-approval wasn't a guarantee, but this mortgage commitment would be. And the mortgage commitment process will vary a little bit depending on the lender, but generally they're going to want to review everything all the documentation that you have signed up to this point, purchase and sale. You're going to have a copy of the deed rider, and they're going to do an appraisal of the home. So SCB's final review comes after all of that. Sign the purchase and sale, you have your mortgage commitment for this property. We have to do a final review because it's required that households remain eligible for the affordable housing program all the way up till closing. So about 3 to 4 weeks prior to your closing date, staff at SEB are going to conduct that final review. That's going to entail gathering updated pay stubs, bank statements, and your mortgage commitment letter. And we're going to forward that final package to DHCD again for their final approval. And if your eligibility is maintained, you're going to move right to closing. And once you've closed on the home, you're all set to move in. There are no additional or future income or asset eligibility reviews. You don't need to maintain eligibility as long as you live in the property. I think that is about it. I'm going to stay on the call, or stay on this feed here now in case there's anybody. I can't see how many people are here, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. Again, you can find the lottery application for this 2-bedroom home at Village Gate and Manomet Bluffs on our website under I Want to Buy. The info pack is also there along with the deed rider. Jeanette, I see your chat here. Is that question related to your income or anything? Or something that you need the home to feature for you? You can just type a follow-up in there, or we can chat afterwards. so you don't have to disclose anything in here. You can email info@scbhousing.com, and I'll be sure to get back to you. So why don't we do that? Why don't you email anything related to a disability or anything? Let's have you send a private message to us at info@scbhousing.com, and we'll be able to answer your question offline. So any other questions for anyone else on here that that you have after this info session, or after you're watching it, after it's been posted to YouTube? Same thing, info@scbhousing.com. We'll be happy to answer any questions, to navigate through the process, and have a great night. Good luck.